Brian De Palma's Carliti's Way, the opening sequence in slow motion. We see the main character, Carliti, played by Al Pacino, getting shot, and then the cast, of course, Sean Penn. I noticed Viggo Mortensen's got a minor role in this. Can't remember anything about it, though I've seen it twice. In this opening credit in slow motion, De Palma's use of the camera is suggesting that you, the viewer, are actually the victim, because it's a lot of the footage is with him on his side as he's being dealt with by medics and given sort of IV fluids, but it's in black and white, but it's an interesting technique. We then witness a court hearing where Carliti is released after spending 5 years inside, based on the fact that his lawyer has managed to find out that the evidence couldn't stand up, guilty of wiretapping in the case of the prosecutor, and so the case has fallen flat. And although Carliti was convicted as a narcotics trafficker, that now has been quashed. The sentence has been quashed. Carliti made this brave statement in court that he's now going to lead a straight and narrow life, but and now it's to celebrate his freedom on the town with his lawyer David Kleinfeld, played by Sean Penn. Kleinfeld manages to persuade him to manage a club that he's invested $50,000 in, and he wants somebody to keep an eye on what's going on there, and that's the gist of the movie from here on, as we move back or forward, as the case may be, to the first scene of him getting shot, and so that's the gist of this movie. It's of course second time Pacino's worked with De Palma. Previously, a decade earlier, he was in Scarface. Penn is virtually unrecognisable, with a frizzy sort of blondie type wig. Kleinfeld's not exactly a squeaky clean lawyer. He's defended mobsters, sure, but now he's become part of it, part of the racket, and he uses a large amount of cocaine, so he's certainly very dodgy. We then move to Carliti going back to his old neighbourhood, his old hangouts, all the number of contacts, number of people that he worked with, and we get the sort of atmosphere of the low lifes, the organised crime gangs, the soldiers, the bosses, and it becomes fairly clear that the script is suggesting that this straight and narrow opinion ain't gonna last that long. his young driver and puts it into perspective. Carliti is a legend in the area. His name means hood, gangster. So in this pool bar, the lad's got $30,000 and clearly some dope to be secured for that amount of cash. And Carliti's aside to it, looking extremely concerned at what could possibly happen. There's a massive shootout. Carliti manages to get into the bathroom. His young kid's gone, slaughtered. Carliti appears to be the only one still alive, so he takes the loot, gets out the back door when the police arrive. So he throws himself in with Penn's plan to manage this club. There's Latino music being played throughout. We already had Santana, and now there's sort of Tito Puente, and Pacino's so loud and abrasive and believable and powerful. He's super bright and works out people's ulterior motives so quickly that he's one step ahead of them. Benny Blanco, first main role for John Leguizamo. The interaction between Pacino and Benny over the change of rules. He's got to pay. He can't reduce he can't lock the amount against the debt that the other guy owes him, made clear by Carliti. Carliti continues his narration. He sees a girl in the club, it reminds him of an old flame. But that's all behind him after he went inside. Klein Clark's got another gang boss holed up in Rikers Island who's pretty ill. He wants out. He wants to escape in a boat. There's a lot of money involved.
No walk from the district attorney's office.
This is really, really beautiful scene where Carlotti really connects with his old girlfriend who he broke her heart, and they share an intimate moment, and it's the two actors it looks so genuine, the sort of the pain, the feeling of the regret, the re-emerging pain in the girl. It's very touching, very beautiful. Kleinfeld's client in Rikers makes it absolutely stone cold clear that he owes him, and he's got to try and break him out of prison by a boat. On receiving the news from Kleinfeld that there's a contract out on his head if he fails to deliver, as he leaves the penitentiary, the acting's great as he sort of almost throws up after exiting the building. Lally out of the clink, went in walking, come out in a wheelchair, and he's played by a very young Viggo Mortensen. Carliti finds a wire on her knee, turned coat for the DA, still trying to whack Carliti, get him back inside. In the club we get a chance to acquire that taste for a disco dance, the Saturday Night Fever era, back in our ears. Like Pleasant is too. There's a hairy incident in a club. The new kid on the block, Benny Blanco from the Bronx, wants a girl, and the lawyer Penn has the girl, and Carlotti intervenes and basically treats Benny like a piece of dirt, kicks him out. This is the past and the present colliding in terms of influence on the streets. The heavy mob. Carlotti's the past, Blanco's the present. Back in the old days, he would have been filled full of lead with Benny, but Carlotti backs down. Dave shares with Carlotti the job that he's got to do to save his own neck, springing that guy from Rikers with a boat, and he wants Carlotti's help. Carlotti points out that he's a lawyer he's not in this business. And the scene between the two, it's interesting watching Penn, who's sort of like the young protagonist here, and the old experienced pro, Pacino. It's wonderful watching them work together in this scene particularly, where Penn is, in character, but he's clearly out of his depth, whereas Pacino is in character and totally at ease. Marvellous. Loyalty to his lawyer. He's in on the crazy scheme. That means now he's doubled his problems. He's still got Benny, and now he's got this. So much for being on the straight and narrow. He goes to girl's flat. She's got the chain on. There's this terribly seductive tease from her about imagining him breaking the lock and making love to her on the floor. He says that it's too old for that, and the camera, De Palma's camera, shows through Carloti's eyes as the girl slowly disrobes as she walks away from the door. It's absolutely so enticing. Then he busts in, and all with Joe Cocker saying, "You're so beautiful" at the same time. It's a magical moment in this movie. Music is great, particularly when George McRae, Rock Me Baby, comes on. What a fantastic dance song. An impassioned plea by Gail to Charlie Carliti to not get involved with Dave in this crazy plan, but he's stuck with loyalty to repay the fact that he got out of prison on a technicality because of Dave. It's as they go to collect their convict, Dave decides to kill him, push him under the water. Dave also disposes of the guy that drove the boat, complete with dinghy, to suggest that they drowned, capsized dinghy. We hear the narrative from Carliti. Dave's overstepped the line, now we've got to go to wherever we go. He knows he's on very shaky ground now, probably soon to be a hit. Carlotti, Puerto Rican, but he knows the Italian mafia, they won't swallow this accidental drowning. He tells Dave that he's even with him, and now it's a question of trying to survive. Dave gets whacked. Carloti's brought in, and the evidence against Kleinfeld's spelled out, and they want Carlotti to be state witness. But again, his loyalty gets in the way. They know that he was on the boat that led to the gang boss and son ended up in the river. But his loyalty, pig-headed, carliti girl, taxi, his plan, do a runner, money out the safe, Miami, then plane to Nassau, him, her and the kid that's in the oven. The finale, carliti fleeing the mob, the son of the guy that ended up in the river, pursuing with his crew. The fast-paced music, the frantic chase on the underground train. It's cocking. It's hardly surprising with De Palma modelled himself on Hitchcock. Maggie meets up with her mother, and her mother asks her to drop the case, but she's so stubborn she sees it as an opportunity to get one over on her father. There's a deep-rooted sort of hatred's probably too strong a word, but a deep-rooted negativity linked to her father's infidelity and the pain he inflicted on her mother, and she's holding on to this and holding on to the opportunity that she can flaunt her superiority in front of a jury and a court. Maggie sums up the end of their chat after her mother's said that she's stuck with him and come through out the other side and actually become a better person. But she's left with her daughter saying, "You had your choice to forgive him, and I have my choice not to." The first appearance of the pair of them in court, with Maggie representing the company, and Jed takes the early initiative, goes 1-0 up by insisting that the company supply him with the names and addresses of all employees, past and present. She tries to flannel him off, but he's already done his homework and he's 1-0 up. He's got an address following his individual inquiry about a bogus man, and it lays down the format for what is going to be a terrific boxing match. As they leave the courtroom, Maggie makes a phone call, and then within minutes the mother has a heart attack and dies in the court precinct, with Jed looking on, helpless. And next we see them at the wake, the Gospels. Nice tender moment after the sort of wake, so to speak, in the kitchen, a moment to recall memory of family, of the significance of certain objects. Maggie and Jed capturing that moment. It's very well done. Argo Motors. Now there was a movie called Argo much later with Ben Affleck. I wonder if that was the same company. Maggie and Jed cooks an evening meal for the pair. It's not up to scratch with his wife, and then they share some old family photos. It's sort of like the lull before the storm, the sort of the realisation that they are father and daughter before they get stuck in to the court battle later. The 60s photos bring up the touchy subject of his philandering, which brings forth a slight spat as the conflict increases. It's inevitable that he would throw her out. Pre-trial interview, one of the victims of the firestorm in the car is cross-examined by Maggie, and his driving record, he's had a phobia and drove too slow, and as a result 3 other accidents where he was hit from behind, and they produced the photos. This man's got a phobia. Jed lays into them afterwards about the fact that they are soulless and heartless. It's a brilliant scene by Hackman. She finds out from some guy that worked for the company about the likelihood of an explosion in the electrical system, and later it becomes evident that her boss, her current boss, was made aware of this and has covered it up, and so she has a showdown with him, and we get into this usual tit for tat of, you know, look the other way to save your career. If you decide to tread the line, want to be just and honourable, it could be the end of your career scenario. So they send Jed's firm all of the correspondence over 35 years, a mountain of paperwork, and work on the basis of a misfiled report, which they've deliberately misfiled, that it will never surface because of the time necessary to go through it all. Jed spots this immediately. Maggie asks the obvious thing, why didn't they fix the fault? The guy gives her an answer. If all the plaintiffs were to sue and they settled at $500,000 each, it would cost about half the amount it would to recall the units and fix the problem. And the likelihood of all those explosions leading to proceedings very remote. The movie has approached a sort of bridge, really. Maggie is now starting to show certain features that have been passed on to her by her father, and that of sort of truth-saying, and she's learning more and more of the deceptive nature with which the firm she works for is determined to win at all costs, and she doesn't like the taste of it. Another one of these tender scenes between father and daughter, where Maggie sort of bears her soul about how she's constantly put her father up on a pedestal of the person to blame for everything, and I suspect that she might well tell him about what she's found, but I'm not sure if that's going to happen. I can't remember what happened when I saw it originally. Paul, the scientist that worked on the car and wrote the report that's now mysteriously disappeared, is cross-examined by Maggie, and she basically manages to manipulate the situation where it becomes apparent that his memory for numbers is very, very poor. And she's using that type of argument to suggest that his recall of the problems could not be so accurate. Jed then moves on and calls Maggie's boss. The daughter has leaked a name to her father when she found out that the father had disappeared. He called this guy in and confirmed that there was that he was doing an assessment, a cost-benefit assessment on recall versus taking the possible brunt of a legal action. So we then have this scene in Chambers with the judge and Jed and the chief barrister, and Jed gets the guy grovelling on the floor, a mission of guilt, and him offering crazy money to shut the door on it, and he just walks out. But it's a tremendous piece of acting. And as the final credits come down, a track I've not heard in a long time, if you don't know me by now, by Simply Red. Great fucking ballad, soul ballad.